So do you have somewhat of a standard method that you approach the research from then? Or is there sort of standard things that you like to push in that direction?
Yes, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't talk about standard because still all projects are different, but of course there is a standard. I mean, we usually create a design group that can be from 2 people to 6, depends really on the dimension of the how difficult the project is. And we usually work, me and Filippo, together with the project team. So the people that work for us will never have a sketch to develop, for example, but will always, all the idea will be on the table, of the design table when we have meetings. And it's very important, so nobody is really going ahead with the project without a check of the design team, which I think is very important to keep the project a team project. You know, it's not one person, it's not one single idea. We always say that the best projects are the ones that you don't remember who had the idea, because we don't believe so much in the inspiration idea, like, you know, this poetic attitude that, you know, I wake up in the morning and I draw a sketch and that's the project. But I mean, I'm not saying that it's not working.
Right. No,
that's a process.
Yeah.
For us, it's not working.
Yeah.
Of course, I can have an idea during my dreams, and anybody can have an idea of dreaming, and that's fine. But the result is that I will tell my dream on a design meeting, and everybody will add something. And I think to be open to that discussion is part of this design project, the process. I think we believe in exchanging ideas, and we believe that the project is the result of these different ideas. So anybody can add ideas. The last one that came today, or that just started today, so she can have a great idea tomorrow, and we will be happy to follow that idea. Of course, we have a very strong selection of people, because this attitude needs to have the right people to be developed. We don't like, you know, stars attitude or you know, any kind of arrogant people to work here, because we are not like that, and it will be difficult to have somebody that work for us that has got that attitude. Usually, I mean, we do interview for anybody, of course, but also for people that do an internship because of that, and people usually feels very comfortable in the office, or in 3 or 4 days they just don't feel in the office. I mean, usually people after 1 week we understand how personality is, and we are much more keen in you know, in that subject than really in technical talent, because everybody can learn that. But the attitude is something that I should be your parents to deal with that, and I'm not. And so it's much more difficult. So usually people that have that kind of attitude, they leave, or we may. Of course, this process doesn't mean anarchy. So we, as a partner, we have the last word, and we decide how to go ahead, because democracy needs also a kind of rules. Otherwise, we cannot discuss for ages about the project, and then we have a deadline. But usually, it's something that is very natural. We don't, you know. I think it's important that the project, as we are 2 partners already, we have discussion between us, and when the project is working and makes sense, everybody understood that we reached the point that the project is working. So there's usually not so many discussion about that. It's kind of natural for us now. I mean, it's like we understood if it's working or not, and sometimes you follow a road, and after a week of work, it doesn't work. And we understand that we prefer to start from scratch. I mean,
And to have the flexibility to say, okay, that's okay, just to move forward.
Exactly. I think it's because we learn also that if you try to save a project that doesn't work, it's usually much worse than just starting again.
So then, in terms of okay, the team is assembled and they begin to throw some ideas together. What are the ways that you begin to get the idea down? Is it on paper? Is it models?
Models. The first thing we do, especially for architecture, is create a model with
Foam?
what's around the area, and
So context usually first?
yeah, especially if it's a building, we just build up a contest, depending on the size of the project. But that's the first thing, and then we start really putting dimensions, so putting the volume. That can be just first probably it's just
Okay.
a box.
I mean, this is an extreme example of context in a way, but just as an example, we'll come back to it, I'm sure. But that's an example where everybody can see that when you began the model, before you start designing a form, you're like, okay, this place is in this place, and that began to affect almost immediately the form.
That's a good example because, for example, this project was really related to the site.
Yeah.
And even if because now we have the possibility to see all these photos from the satellite, and you have an idea of the area also with photos. We use that a lot, and it's very useful. But still, a model gives you an idea, and in this project, all the views of the project, because it's just near the highway, and the client
It's
wants
just
something
north of Bolzano, is that right?
south of
Just south of Bolzano.
just coming into Bolzano, and this is going out from Bolzano. But because the client wants something that he was very visible and it was recognizable from people that drive to Bolzano, to have a model and see how it looks from the car, it was one of the first important issue. We do many sketches. Unfortunately, we don't keep everything, so now I can show you after the room where we do models. And it's not very important they are well done. It's just fast. So we prefer to have 10 of that in one day than have one that is perfect. And from that we try to investigate different solutions. We are very fast. We try to be very fast in choosing direction, but we want to try every direction.
Okay.
Earlier you were saying that the process that you have is sort of like inside out. Like you like to start about how the space is going to affect the people directly, and then start to work from form. So at the beginning stages of investigating these forms and stuff, how do you investigate the inside space or the interaction between people?
It's parallel to what I say about the model. Usually there is another person that is working on the layout immediately in terms of how it works the building. And usually that kind of things can work. It's just a study to understand that, I don't know, an entrance wall should be close to these functions, and is sometimes the client is very good and already developed this kind of brief, so they tell you already this kind of organizational scheme. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the client have wrong idea, so we try to propose maybe something else, but that's a very important thing. And of course, I'm talking about the first stages is like really a sculpture that you create, but then you change scale, and we do models maybe on one part of the building. And this project have a model just for this is a hiking wall.
Climbing wall?
Climbing inside.
Climbing center.
So that's like a glass paneling that is disappear for big events. So you gonna overlook the park in front of you. But for example, that part of the building, maybe there is at one point there is another team that is just developed that and is shaping that. And that's maybe when you see the inside together with the outside. Like this project,
Sure.
just as an example of.
Sure.